Hey, everybody. Guy here from Chit Chat. Thanks so much for continuing to listen. It means the world to us that you have continued to allow us into your world and into your rhythms and routines. Maybe even right now you're dropping kids off at school or folding laundry or cooking dinner. Me, when I'm listening to podcasts, I love having my AirPods in. I've never said this. And I love blowing the driveway when I get home. I listen to a little podcast, blow off the driveway, blow off the patio with the blower. So maybe you're doing that right now too. I just got done recording a really fun podcast with Aaron Fisk. Aaron is the president and CEO of Catholic Charities. Maybe you're like me and you don't know a lot about Catholic Charities. I didn't about a year ago. I didn't really know anything about Catholic Charities. And then over this past year, we've had the opportunity to work with them, shoot some videos for them, create some content for them. And it has been really a treat to get to know them and to see the ways that they affect and benefit our community, the way they serve people in our community that have great need. Aaron and his team do a really, really nice job. And it was a really fun conversation, getting to know him and learning more today about Catholic Charities. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. We sure appreciate it. We're live. Aaron,
wonderful.
Thanks for coming to join us on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Aaron, would you introduce us? Who are you and where do you work? What do you do?
Sure. My name is Aaron Fisk. I am the president and CEO at Catholic Charities, the Diocese of St. Cloud. Been in that role just under a year.
Yeah. Were you at Catholic Charities before, or are you new to Catholic Charities and new in this role?
So a little of both.
Okay.
So I was not an employee at Catholic Charities. I was on the board.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Before that. But prior to that, I spent my 20 plus years before that in for-profit.
Okay.
So it was a little bit of jumping into the nonprofit sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a little side note. I love that. I've said so many times, I've probably said it on here, but I wish more people that work in nonprofits had some experience in for-profit. There's kind of a problem solving that you kind of need to do sometimes in for-profit that I think would be really, really helpful. I've proposed this idea. I guess I'll say it, that for people that work in nonprofits and maybe vice versa, you work for 9 years in your kind of industry.
Sure.
And then for 1 year, like a year of jubilee of sorts, you need to go and you need to kind of cross the aisle into either nonprofit or for-profit.
Sure.
And then you get to go back and work another almost decade in your for-profit, but with this like kind of businessy kind of mindset. I think that could be really helpful if anybody knows how to make that happen or build some
To make that be a thing.
some transitional kind of medium there. You should do that. Anyway, so what were you doing in the for-profit world before you came to Catholic Charities?
So I was at Microbiologics, so a granite company here in town, and was running the services division.
Okay.
And so and it was on the board at Catholic Charities, and so the executive director position opened up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I was not even thinking about it at the time.
Yeah.
And so God sometimes hits you over the head.
Yeah.
And so then I had a couple people from the community say, hey, you should think about this.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. I'm on the board and really wasn't thinking about it. And I had to have other people tell me, hey, you should think about this. And so I had always thought about nonprofit leadership at some point in my career. Then made the switch and here we are.
Cool. Maybe, for our listeners that don't really know what Catholic Charities is or does, would you just give us maybe like a high level about some of your programs, what kinds of people in our community utilize your services, and what are some of the ways that Catholic Charities is meeting needs in our community?
Sure. So we really have three focus areas, pillars, we like to call them: food access, housing, and mental health. So in food access, the food shelf, so down in Roosevelt, kind of behind 1040 Ford, that's kind of one of the pillars of the community. Distributed almost 2.5 million pounds of food last year.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we also do a mobile food shelf that goes around to some affordable housing communities in the area. So that's one of them. So we do senior dining in 14 counties as part of that as well. And tied into the food shelf, we have a B program, Basic Essentials, coats, shoes, dishware, those kind of things for people who are in need. And then some basic financial assistance. So if someone needs a gas card or a bus pass, something like that. Then in the housing, we have some affordable housing properties in some of the St. Cloud areas, some in more rural Stearns County. We do some transitional housing. So we have Domus program for those who are women who are trying to transition into more permanent housing and they have kids. We do some support for homeless youth, kind of trying to get them into working with them to get into housing and another housing program for those with some mental impairments, trying to get them housing. We have 8 group homes, 4 in St. Cloud, 4 in Cold Spring, an in-home program, and then we do some financial and housing counseling for people trying to get into or stay in their house. Then on the mental health side, we have a Granite City Counseling, a behavioral outpatient clinic. We have 2 date treatment programs for kids in school who it's kind of the last step before residential treatment. So one in St. Cloud, one in Elk River. And then we have a foster grandparent program, not clinical, but grandparents going into schools, preschools, Head Starts to work with kids.
Great.
So that's, I mean, it's really quick.
Yeah. Yep. I didn't know a ton about Catholic Charities before this past year, and Switchboard's had the opportunity to create some videos and stuff for Catholic Charities, and so we've got to see kind of under the hood of sorts of all the different or lots of the different organizations and programs and the way that they kind of meet needs, and seeing that firsthand is it's really special. Well, there's kind of 2 sides of that. There's a sadness and a sorrow to it. When you kind of see on the inside, you get to see some brokenness and some pain and some hurt. But the flip side of that is that you also get to see people caring and trying and creating programs and resources and tools for those people that are walking through pain in our community. I even thought it when you said 2.5 million pounds of food. It's like, yeah, awesome. And also 2.5 million pounds of food was needed, in our community. And
and that was 18% higher than 2023, which was 18% higher than 2022. And one of the sad, or challenging aspects is seniors is the largest growing demographic for our food shelf.
Do you think is it growing because there's something specific happening to the senior population right now, or is it just the fact that boomers and seniors, or we're aging into that population? There's just a lot more of them.
It's probably a little of both. I would also say the inflationary impact, especially of those on a fixed income, is also a component of that as well.
If your fixed income is growing at 1% a year or 2% a year, and groceries are inflating at 11% a year. Okay, got it.
Makes that delta hard, right?
Yeah, really, really hard.
Yeah, because their housing is probably also going up as well, right, on that fixed income.
Yep. Wow, lots of complexity there. Would you unpack a little bit? I know that you aren't Catholic. Catholic Charities, it has a relationship with the diocese. It's not just Catholic in name.
Right.
There is a relationship with the diocese. Unpack for me a little bit about the Catholic nature of that and how you, as even the president and CEO, or president and director, what's your...
President and CEO. Yeah. Doesn't really matter, but yeah, it's the title.
Aren't Catholic, and how does that kind of work?
Sure. So you don't have to be Catholic to work at Catholic Charities. You don't have to be Catholic to volunteer. You don't have to be Catholic to get services. That's probably one of the biggest challenges we have is people think they have to be Catholic to get services at Catholic Charities. So we try to make sure that they realize, no, you don't have to do that. And so, I'm not Catholic. And that was part of the, certainly in the St. Cloud, I think I'm the first non-Catholic to lead the organization.
Really interesting.
And so that was a discussion, and I did have a conversation with the Bishop Neary, prior to joining, but it was much more around the heart of service and the heart of believing in kind of the tenets of Catholic social teaching and how we go out and serve and what we're doing. That was more important for him than anything else. And so, we have a good relationship with the diocese. The chancellor and chief of staff sit on our board as an ex officio, and we have a great working relationship there. We have our own board, but we do have a great working relationship.
That's great. Is Catholic Charities, are you Catholic Charities Central Minnesota, and there are Catholic Charities all over the country, or is this the only one?
There are 167 Catholic charities throughout the country.
Got it.
And so, and actually even, there's I think there's one in Guam, there's one, there's U.S. territories and that type of thing. So, yes, there are a number of them. but not every diocese has one. So like the Diocese of Duluth and Crookston do not have Catholic Charities.
So do you service that area?
We do not.
Okay.
There are, most don't cross dioceses. North Dakota, I think, is one of the exceptions, where there's one Catholic Charities across 2 dioceses, Bismarck and Fargo. But it's a little bit different. It's much more like a network than franchise model. So each Catholic Charities in their community, with their board, decides, all right, what are the greatest needs that are here that we're in position to meet? So you might hear news articles or read about people doing services at Catholic Charities throughout the country
that you don't see in your local community.
That we do not do. That others in the community might be doing,
Right.
or may not be the same. Like hurricane relief would not be one that hopefully we never have to worry about, because that's if that did, there's a lot of other issues that we have from that standpoint. So so we don't. You'll certainly hear about ones that. And the one that comes up quite often is refugee resettlement, and we do not do that in this area.
So it's not a one size fits all thing.
No,
Each community is autonomous in a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
They get to make their decisions on what they focus on, and and I'm guessing as a nonprofit, you are, you're donor funded. But is there also grant funding? Do you guys also receive funding in other areas?
Yeah, so we are the largest social services nonprofit in central Minnesota. We have about 300 employees if we were fully staffed, and we get revenue from a lot of different sources. And so donors are one of the sources. Our largest source of funding is either federal, state, county government funding through that whole continuum. And a lot of that really is much more of, I guess, the partnership of service, right? So they are services that generally the federal government, state government would be tasked with doing, that they have found that having a nonprofit do that is more efficient and more effective than if they were to try to do that. And so senior dining is an example of one of those services where that is something that for those seniors who are lower income, that is something the government people expect them to be taken care of. And so we do that in the 14
on behalf
county
of.
region. Yes.
Yeah.
And so there's a number of ones that are like that where we do that on behalf of the government. And so in partnership with them, and it's important for us to do that well and show our impact.
How long has this chapter, is that the right word? This branch, this
I guess
cadre. I don't know.
I guess that would be a chapter is probably the best. Yeah. This is our 70th year.
Wow.
And so not only are we largest, but we've had a long period of impact and influence in the community.
So I know you're only a year in, but obviously from your seat, you can kind of look backwards and you can see the things that Catholic Charities have been a part of and what you all have done in your kind of collective history. So as you're looking backwards a bit and then turning around and facing the future,
forward,
what kinds of things what are you excited about? What kinds of things do you think are coming for Catholic Charities? What's going to be new and different in your organization?
Sure. And we're going through a strategic exercise around that, both as a leadership team and a board right now. And so we're just starting that. So I don't know that I could tell you exactly. But we like to think of ourselves, I don't know if this will become our analogy, but the thought of we're a platform, right? And so what I mean by that is for some people, it's a step up to more stability. And for others, it's a spot where they won't fall all the way through the floor, right? So there's that just platform of support for stability. That's really what a lot of our programs do, is that support and trying to give them the stability to be more self-reliant longer term. Yeah. So going forward, it would be those type of, those efforts. And again, we have a 16 county region, and part of it is, okay, how do we how do we serve the entire region and what services make sense to do that, and what are the best delivery methods? Because it's one thing to do them in the St. Cloud area, but there's a little higher population density, and the delivery methods would be different than if you were out in Traverse County, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether you use an actual name or not, is there a story that you could maybe share with us? Something in your time, maybe even this last year,
Sure.
that you saw happen, or some need that Catholic Charities was able to meet, that kind of is indicative of the kind of thing that you're excited about, that you and your organization get to do every day.
Sure. And so I like to highlight that we had the benefit breakfast and we had the individuals, and the story of Gavin. He was one of individuals who was going through one of our day treatment programs and was really struggling and, not taking as much kind of ownership of his life and his relationship and with his mom and everything. And so it was kind of one of the final steps that he could take, and really started to take ownership and think about things differently, and really made some real progress in his life going forward. And those kind of stories, where especially when they're at that point in their life where they've got their whole life ahead of them, to be able to make those kind of changes is just, it's really impactful. And there's also the stories, we've had several around Meals on Wheels homebound seniors, where they can't leave their house. And so someone delivering a hot meal to them every day, and that's usually the main form of contact someone has with them that day, because they can't leave their house. So it's not only the food, but it's the connectivity, right? The meeting with someone else. Yeah.
That's great. This past year, just a couple of the stories that we were able to be a part of videoing and capturing some of that were really, really, really meaningful. One of the ones, a gentleman who had, I think, court ordered
Nick?
Yeah. We shot a video of him that was public, so we can say his name. But yeah, Nick, was needed classes, etc. on domestic violence, and his story and transformation of how he wanted to be better, and he wanted to be better for his boy. And he reached the end of what his court mandated kind of class time was.
Yeah.
He could have left, but he continued to stay and pay for it from his own pocket, because he liked how he felt when he was there. He liked the progress that he felt while he was there. And he knew that his story of progress was valuable for the new guys in the program. And hearing his story, and how, and seriously, so meaningful and so touching, him trying to be healthy because he wanted to show health to his son, it was so powerful. At the end of the project, Nick called me to thank.
Oh, really?
Yeah, got my phone number and thanked me for doing X, Y, and Z. And I was like, Nick, you don't need to thank me. I felt so much gratitude towards him.
Yeah.
Because the vulnerability that he engaged with, and his openness and his honesty, it was so powerful and so cool.
Yeah.
For sure. One of the neatest kind of video projects that we've had the ability to kind of be a part of. And so seeing that firsthand, what you do, was just really, really exciting, and kind of a neat thing. And yeah, I went from not knowing a ton, and I mean, I grew up in this community, but I guess by God's grace, I never needed any of your services, and so I didn't know a ton.
Yeah.
And just learning so much about the need that you guys meet in our community was, of course, sad and hard in a kind of way, but really, really exciting. So
yeah, and for someone like Nick and those are the kind of stories that give us hope for people who are going through that struggle, and give other people going through that hope, because sometimes it can feel a little bit like the cycle, right? That it's hard to break. But Nick is an example for us as a community, but also for others going through that class of if you really want to make that change, you can do that. Possible. And here's the positive ramifications going forward.
Yeah. I think that's true in so many ways. I'm just trying to run more. I'm trying, like just
Oh, yeah.
whatever it is, like
Yeah.
fitness and diet and health, all of these things that are like good and healthy. I want to read more, any of those kinds of things. If you just stay in your little silo, and you might struggle through that
Yeah.
thing forever. If you are willing to tell someone, that's a good step. If you're
Yeah.
willing to include someone and fold someone into that journey of trying to be better, if you look towards people who do that thing well, all of those things are markers for success. And kind of getting that out of the dark and into the light is super, super valuable in my own life and all
Yeah.
of these other areas too.
Yeah, there's in switching gears a little bit. There's a book, Atomic Habits, and there's the thought around habit stacking. So if you have a habit, stack another habit along with that to do kind of. And so if you have a habit of getting up in the morning, then okay, well maybe when you get up and do that, then you add the going for a walk for 50 minutes, and then that's how. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that's great. And are you from our community? Like
I am not. I am from Western Wisconsin.
Okay.
So grew up about 5 miles east of Stillwater.
All right.
Kind of between Hudson and Somerset.
Okay.
But I went to Hudson for school.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. And in what year did you? How old were you when did you come here for college, or was it for your career?
I went to undergrad at University of Wisconsin La Crosse.
All right.
That's where I did my undergrad. And so when I was there, my junior year, I went for business, right? So I realized in my career, I've always taken kind of the path less traveled to where I'm ending up, right? So I ended up going for business. And my senior year of high school, I looked at, first I want to be an architect. And then it was a high school band teacher. And then it was an optical physicist. And I ended in business, right? So not really anyway, but I ended in business. So my junior year, I had a business law class. And I was like, that was kind of cool. Maybe law school. So I took the LSAT, went to the University of Minnesota Law School, and figured out about 2 months in, I like business more than I like law, right? But I'm there. So where I met my wife, which is funny because we both said we'd never date attorneys. So God has a sense of humor about that. But went there and kind of used that to kind of focus on the HR because that was my emphasis in undergrad. So how we got here is my wife got a job clerking for Judge Houlihan and Foley. So we moved up here. And so originally I was going to try to find a job in HR. It was the year Fingerhut closed. So it wasn't a lot of job availability. So I went back, got my MBA at St. Cloud State. Yeah.
And so did you get a JD?
Yeah, I'm licensed, but I don't practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I took the bar and
yeah. Where'd you go to law school? Did you?
University of Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. Minus the law piece of your story mine is a little bit similar. When I was probably like 15 years old, I'd always been a music kid, but when I was like 15, I had this hankering that I wanted to be an architect bad. And I started thinking about it. I went to some I don't remember what they're called, but when you're a high schooler and you're like thinking about job placement stuff and like you can go and like learn about stuff. And I did some of that for I went to one where there was an architect that spoke so I could learn about it. And thankfully he just started asking me some questions like, tell me about, you really like math, right? And I was like, no, I don't. He's like, okay. Great. There's a lot of math. There's a lot of math. And in my mind, it was like, it was a little more free form. It's like thinking about buildings and that would look cool. Of course they have to be like very sound and all this thing.
Yes.
But, so like this, the math piece of the architecture it precluded me from pursuing it any further.
Yeah, okay.
And I learned pretty quick. And so I didn't chase that very far. And then all this music stuff as a kid, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go and I'd like to be a college choir conductor.
Oh, yeah.
Went to school for choir and I was in band through all of high school and stuff too. But it was music, and
Yeah.
then, ended up, there was nothing with law and then just into business. So,
Yeah. So I went to law school as a business undergrad, which was not common.
Okay.
I got my JD and licensed bar, but didn't practice law, so that was uncommon. I went from law to practice HR, which was uncommon. Then I went from HR to general management and within business, right, running a division, which not many HR. And then I went from for-profit to nonprofit. I'm not sure what's next, but it's going to be whatever it is. It's going to be different.
Space, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to go. Yeah. I'm going to go be on Mars. Yeah.
It's great.
Not sure my wife is going to be real excited about that.
No.
Especially after those people on the space station were stuck there for
Right. Yeah. From 8 days to 9 months or whatever.
Yeah.
Imagine that. You're like, we're
Yeah,
We're gonna
long
go visit, kind of long weekend, go visit some family, and then you're stuck there for almost a year.
9 months, yeah.
That's crazy. Story is the driving force for us here at Switchboard. Story is also the reason that Chit Chat exists. We tell stories of the people around us through photos, videos, branding, and websites. Story helps us find meaning, and it draws a community together, and we would love to help tell your story. You can find us at www.switchboard.mn. We would love to meet you. We'd love to talk with you and learn more about the story that you are trying to tell and how our story-driven marketing tools can help you communicate better. Can't wait to talk to you soon. Okay, married. Do you guys have kids?
We do. Yeah,
Wonderful.
My daughter's almost 17.
Sweet.
And my son is 15.
All right.
So they both go to Apollo.
I have a 2 year. I have two boy then girl, but a 2 year gap in between. Yeah, sweet. You have some papers here, and I
I just have one.
Okay.
So I whiteboard just about everything. Not that anybody can read it because my handwriting's so bad.
Will you tell me? Because I didn't even ask you before we started. I just saw it there. I see some things written. What is this? No one has ever sat down across.
No
the
one's
table
ever sat down on a piece of paper?
I think someone brought a piece of paper, but nothing quite like this. This is it's a photograph of a whiteboard. Is this like things that you're hoping to talk about?
They were just topics that I thought, okay, if this got asked about, here's some. I brought up the path less traveled to get to where I was at.
Oh, that's so good.
And so just a few items around Catholic Charities and such. I was just. It's been a busy week, so I was like, all right, I just have to map this stuff out.
Oh, that's
otherwise
so good.
I'm going to forget what.
Is there something on here? Just since we're talking about it
that we haven't talked about?
Is there something here that you feel like, ooh, I really want to make sure our community knows this about Catholic Charities?
Well, I'm blessed to have a very dedicated team. I mean, that's one of the things that was interesting going from 20 plus years in for-profit and then going to nonprofit. We have a number of people that are 35, 40 year plus employees, which is pretty uncommon nowadays in for-profit. And so that is the dedication of the team to the people we serve is pretty remarkable. Yeah. And that's one of the things coming in. I was like, wow, there's a lot of value there, a lot of historical background of why we've done programs and what that's looked like and adaptation. So yeah.
Cool. This past year, we went to Mardi Gras for the first.
Oh, yeah.
I had never been to Mardi Gras, and we had such a nice time. It was such a lovely event.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. What should people know about that event? Obviously, there are so many galas. There are so many.
Oh yeah.
They're Central Minnesota. We got a lot of actually. I mean, ironic. I think the last podcast that just came out was Larry kind of
about volleyball,
talking a lot about volleyball. I mean, there are so many of these kind of like good organizations that host these fundraisers, events, and galas. What should people know about Mardi Gras?
Yeah, so it's our way of connecting with the community for lots of people to come and learn about some of our stories, but have a lot of fun doing it. Right.
Yeah.
So silent auction. We've got a Plinko board. We've got.
I played the play. I played.
Did you win? Did you get something really cool?
I did.
Oh yeah.
It was. I drank very, very little, but it was such a fun thing to do. This cool giant board, a way to get money into the organization. I think it was $20, and I let my wife drop it, and there was all of the things like that you could win, and then there was one it just had the logo, I think, for Cashwise for the Cashwise liquor. So it was like one of the good ones.
Yeah.
And then they like had these cards, and you reach in and grabbed a card, and it was a bottle of wine. It's called Juggernaut, which is so fitting. It is like no lie. It is this tall. It's just sitting on the counter in our kitchen. But it is seriously. I think it's like 4 bottles of wine in one. The party, the scope of party that we'll have to have.
You're gonna have to
break
people over.
into that.
Yeah. And that's not you and your wife in one evening handling that one.
No.
So it's a great event. We've been doing it for 40, I think it's 43 or 44 years. I'd have to check. But it's a wonderful event to get the community engaged. And we have amazing sponsors that come and do that. And Fabulous Armadillos play.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's an enjoyable evening. It's end of January is when we have it. So yeah, a lot of fun.
How many years were you on the board before?
So I joined the board in 2022.
Okay.
So joined at that point. So I was on the board a little over 2 years prior to
And how familiar with Catholic Charities were you before joining the board?
So I had learned about Catholic Charities because I was on the board of the United Way of Central Minnesota for 6 years, kind of from, I think it was 2013, 2019. So that's how I had learned about it. So then I gained understanding of what they do from being on the United Way board.
Nice.
So yeah.
Cool. And so in that little 2-year gap, were you kind of like, I just need a break from sitting on boards, or did you sit on any other boards?
So I had actually been recruited to go on the Catholic Charities board, and I originally was going to go on in 2020. But then
what happened?
Actually, before that, I had just taken over a microbiologics location in San Diego. And so I was flying back and forth, and I said, I don't have time right now. Let's push it back a year. And then we all know what happened in 2020. It's created, a whole nother deal. But
true, false? San Diego is the prettiest American city to fly into.
Ooh. Of the ones I've been to, probably yes.
Yeah.
But I haven't flown into Hawaii.
Yeah.
I haven't flown into Alaska.
Sure.
So there's some spots that might be pretty cool to fly into, but it's pretty cool. Yeah. And you just come right over the city. I mean, that's
the thing. It's like, it feels like you kind of like reach out and touch downtown. Like you're you're so close. Got the ocean and all the naval ships.
Yeah.
It is a really, really unique city to fly into. My son and I, just this past February, flew into San Diego, went on a mission trip down into kind of northern Mexico, into Ensenada. But you fly into San Diego, and I had told, my son is 12, just wonderful little dude, loves to travel, loves maps, he loves learning about stuff. So like he's kind of there for all of it. And I had told him, I was like, dude, flying in to San Diego is so fun and so pretty. And so we got a window seat. And I gave it to him, of course. I've seen it, and he hadn't seen it. And we get to our seats, we're walking down the aisle.
There's a wing.
No wing. I don't know what was behind the wall, but where there should have been a window, it was just a blank bulkhead. So I literally just got done telling him how incredible it was to fly in. The view is so great, and then it's just nothing, just like a blank wall.
One of those dad moments. I've had many where you're like,
sorry, bud. Yeah. Sorry, bud. And then I took this photo of him that was so cute. The people behind, they had their window open, and he's like, as we're coming down, he's like craning his neck kind of behind. He's trying to look and see. It was very, very sweet. And then on the way out, we did have a little bit better view, but it was so rainy and gross that day that
I couldn't see anything. If you go to San Diego, one of the things that is just wonderful there is the USS Midway.
Yeah.
Like going on that. We did it when our kids were pretty young. Probably they would have been maybe 5, 6, and 4 or something like that, or maybe a little older than that, maybe like 8 and 6. But we spent 4 hours with that age just going. It was quite a
The smell of old Navy ships is there's nothing quite like it. It's the smell of old, but it's like there's a smell of dust in it. Also like old oil. There's just a very unique scent. I think that if you completely like close my eyes and just like if you could wake me up blindfolded in like an old Navy ship, I think I would know this is some old ship. There's just such a unique smell to it. Just personal curiosity, how long were you heading into San Diego? Like how? And how many times a year do you have to, if you're kind of doing something like that, how often do you have to go?
Well, from about 2019, when I took over the location till I left and moved over to Catholic Charities, I probably did, I think it was over 40 trips to San Diego.
Oh my.
Something like that. Yeah.
So it doesn't even feel like, obviously there's an element of it that's like fun. Like, I get to go to the warmth. I get to go. If you're going 40 times, it's just a lot of work.
I was going there and kind of took over an interim, and then 6 months in, COVID hit. And so then for 3 months, I'm trying to lead the operation of the team from teams. And I finally told my CEO at the time, I said, I got to get on planes. I got to get over there. So I'm June of 2020 here. I'm on a plane double masking, and there's hardly anybody in the airports. It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Flying at that point.
Yeah.
And so then when I'd come back, I'd quarantine for 5 days and all this stuff. Yeah. Kind of a surreal experience.
Yeah, what a crazy thing to live through. It'll be interesting over the course of the next 20 years, like my kids, to see and understand it kind of through their lens.
Yeah.
The best summer of their entire life. That spring summer by far. Do you remember that summer was actually really beautiful? That spring was absolutely magical.
Yeah.
Just the weather was so great. The spring came early. There wasn't tons of rain. We didn't lose weeks at a time.
Right.
It was just a really beautiful spring. And as far as they're concerned, we're just biking the neighborhood. It's outside, dad's home all the time. It'll be interesting to see, just in more retrospect, how, obviously so much devastation and pain in all these different ways, but then also just to see it through my kids' eyes. Mm-hmm. Is it so? I was 16. I had just turned 16 when 9/11 happened, right?
Oh,
and so
sure.
it is this very formative, of course, like all of us. You remember where you were. You remember all these beats, these kind of beats and the kind of points that happened right after that. And will that be the same? Is this kind of is this generation's 9/11? Will it have that same kind of impact? And in kind of the collective psyche, I think so. It feels.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think there'll be a lot of kind of. Not probably the same immediacy as 9/11, right? Because that was an event that happened on a day, whereas COVID was kind of a ramp, and there was a time when the world kind of shut down, but it was you were hearing about things as it came about. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm sure they will do some studies about what did we learn from how we responded and what went well and what didn't, and
We were working on a video for Centricare at the time, and we had a meeting in February. I think it was February, to talk. We had just delivered this first draft of the big brand video, and we showed up for this meeting where we were going to talk all about it, watch it together, and make adjustments and head into the rounds of revisions and edits and stuff. And for 2 hours we just sat and talked. Wait, what's coming? They had a little more information than what I was hearing on the news because of being in the know on some stuff. And we never literally we never talked about that video. Just that those months were so strange and so blurry and so all encompassing. Yeah, it was in case you're listening, it was a fascinating time with a lot to learn.
A lot to learn. Yes, for all of us.
That's right. Well, fascinating. Aaron, it's it was really, really nice. Really nice to meet you more and talk to you, hear about Catholic Charities. Again, I've loved learning more about what you guys do. And I'm thankful that Catholic Charities exists and that you're able to help and serve a population in our community that is in need. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for leading a team of almost 300 people doing all of that.
Well, I'm not leading all of them. That would be a little, 300 direct reports might be a little bit, I don't know that I'd be effective.
But isn't that the role of the CEO? You're leading the team and
casting vision. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for casting vision then.
Yes.
So that people can lead the team that's helping serve our community.
Yeah, they're doing most of the hard work.
That's great. Aaron, we close every podcast with an unpaid ad.
Unpaid ad.
Do you have someone, something, or some idea that you think deserves a little plug today?
Sure. So I would say an unpaid ad would be for the immersion programs at District 742. Huh. So my kids went through the Mandarin, are still in high school, but the Mandarin immersion program, I'd started since kindergarten, and I don't know any Mandarin. I haven't ever really been able to learn it. But it has been an amazing experience for them, for the people to learn that. My son went to China last year. My daughter's going this summer. And so it's been a really unique experience for them. And there's Mandarin, there's Spanish, and Somali is the newest. I think that's only been a couple of years they've done that. But to have that in our community as an available option has really been something where you normally have to be in a much larger community to have something like that, like the Twin Cities. Yeah. And so it's a hidden gem within our community.
That's great.
Yeah.
In however many episodes this is, no one has done that one. That's really, really great. How does it work? When you go into this program, are you only in Chinese immersion classes? Is everything in Chinese? Are you in your own a separate school, or does it happen inside the context of one of the other schools?
So it happens inside the school.
Okay.
So for Mandarin, it's at Madison Elementary is with the elementary. And so starting in kindergarten, pretty much all the classes are in Mandarin. Outside of, I think,
English?
band, or not band, choir or whatever, music. At that point, it's music. And I think Fayed.
Yeah.
But the rest of them are in Mandarin. And then once you get to junior high, I think it's 2 classes a day out of the 5 or 6 are in Mandarin. And then once you get to high school, it technically ends immersion because it's just 1 class. So then it's...
And is the 1 class
Chinese.
Mandarin?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you don't speak it, you personally can't gauge like the level of competency that your kids have. But from what you can tell, are they fluent? Are they like, where are they at 15 and 17?
Yeah, I mean, if they went to China, they would pick up a lot of stuff. Chinese is hard because it's also tonal. So saying the same thing but doing different with your tones means a different thing.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy, piece from that standpoint.
Yeah.
But I think that they would do well because of the amount of time they've been in it. But it's also when you do it that young, starting in kindergarten, there's research about how it just changes your brain a little, right? And so
The dual language thing.
Yeah, and then learning a third is easy because you've already learned the second so early. And it was crazy because when our kids were young, we were at, I think it was an airport or it was a park. I can't remember which one, but they were there and they heard some people speaking Mandarin. And so one of them went up and talked to him and they did a double take because at that age, there's no accent. Because they've learned it in kindergarten, they speak as if they grew up in, mainland
Beijing,
China. Yeah, because they learned it so young.
Yeah.
I think over time, as they get older, they get a little bit more accent, just because they spend most of the time doing English. But yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I went to China in college,
Oh.
and I remember a couple of words, but I'm going to tell you one, and then you go home and see if you can remember this one word and see if your kids know it.
Okay.
Shui bi.
Shui bi.
It means Sprite, like the pop. Okay.
Oh.
The soda,
Shui
the
bi.
pop.
Okay.
Shui bi.
Shui bi.
Yep.
Yeah, because you get the tonal. You got to go up. All right.
Whether you like Sprite or not, it was at all of the meals. That we'd show up at a restaurant and there'd be a bottle of Shui bi on the table and a bottle of Coca-Cola at literally everywhere we went. This was in 2007 or something, so a long time ago. But yeah, there was a bottle of Sprite and a bottle of Coke on every table. Also, we did this really fun game. There was also always a bowl of peanuts.
Oh.
And I was with a bunch of college students, and we were all trying to get really good at chopsticks. Some of us like showed up knowing how to use some chopsticks, but our table, big round table. There's all like almost every Chinese restaurant in China has a big lazy Susan, which makes like the family style thing, sharing. It makes it so sweet and so easy. But all sitting in these big round tables, and we would take the Shui bi cap.
Okay.
Right. And it would start in one direction, going around the table, counterclockwise.
Okay.
And a roasted peanut, would start going the other direction. And you can't use your fingers. You just have to pass with the chopstick or with your chopsticks. And it was a way to like force all of us to like get better at it. But you never knew like where the peanut and the little cap were going to cross.
Oh,
and
so then you could tell who was more effective because if it was midpoint, right? Then if
you were good, you didn't mind if you were at the intersection of that because there was kind of some navigating. But if you were new to chopsticks and just happened that it crossed at where you were, this was a problematic
epic
moment.
failure. Yeah.
But anyway, really fun thing. Very cool. The immersion programs.
Yeah.
Exciting. My unpaid ad for the day is for a museum that I just went to in St. Louis, Missouri, called the City Museum. I am going to not say a lot about it because I've tried over the course of the last couple of days. I have tried to explain the City Museum, and it ends up with me talking for 10 minutes about this thing. And at the end of it, I still feel like I didn't do it any justice. But what you need to know is that I love museums, and this is the best museum I've ever been to in my entire life. and I'm going to stop there. But the City Museum in St. Louis, Missouri, 100% worth the trip. Hop in the car, 9.5 hours, take your kids, and go have an absolute riot of a time.
City Museum. I've never heard of it.
It's really, really fun. All right.
Cool.
Well, Aaron, thanks for coming and joining us.
Thank you for doing this. This has been
Yeah.
a real honor, and I appreciate it.
Oh, we should actually, really quick, Chad. Thanks for the recommendation. Chad on your team
Yes,
had kind of
absolutely.
coordinated, and I met Chad at a chamber thing, and he and I chatted about this, and he said, "Oh, it'd be so great. It'd be so great if Aaron came on." And so, Chad, if you're listening, thanks for
Yeah,
the
thanks, Chad.
connection. All right, thanks. Good to talk to you.
Yep.